This might be one of the best retro sneakers of 2025. And if you couldn't already tell, this is the Air Jordan 8 Aqua 2025. Quick before we dive into the review, I'm giving away an Elgato 4K-X, which is a capture device, and an Air Jordan 4 White Cement, one of the most popular sneaker releases of the year. If you want a chance to win either of these, because they're two different prizes, make sure to grab the second of 4 core badges linked in the description below. So the Aqua 8s first debuted on the feet of Michael Jordan during the 1993 All-Star Game in Salt Lake City, Utah. The Jordan 8 silhouette finally released later that year in 3 different colorways: the Aqua colorway, the Playoffs, and of course the Bugs Bunnies. And since 1993, all 3 of these colorways have become iconic. Now I totally get that not everyone is a huge fan of the Air Jordan 8. It's not in everyone's top 5 retro Jordans list, but it's still one of the most iconic, and it's still one of the most important. Not only that, as a retro head and a retro fan, it's one of those shoes that, sure, I might not wear every day because it's very, very hot and honestly kind of difficult to get on foot, but it is the kind of shoe that I like to rock here and there because it's so different and it's so clean. And hey, with 90s and early 2000s style being back in full force, I mean, this is not a bad time to rock a pair of 8s. Even though the Aqua 8s are one of the most popular Air Jordan 8 colorways, they've only released 3 times until now. Of course, you had the initial release back in 1993, and then they retroed for the first time in 2007, and again in 2015. So this 2025 release will be the 4th Air Jordan 8 Aqua drop ever, at least in terms of official Air Jordan 8 Aqua releases. There's been a lot of different Aqua colorway Air Jordan sneakers, and sneakers that look like Air Jordan 8s that feature the Aqua colorway, but if you're talking about the OG, this is the 4th time. Speaking of the OG, while this sneaker is meant to look like the OG, it actually does feature some differences that not only separate it from the original, but also separate it from any of the previous retros. Before we get into that though, let's first talk about when the shoe officially releases. So the Air Jordan 8 Aqua 2025 drops on July 19th for a retail price of $215. Not only that, it's coming in full family sizing, so if you want to outfit the whole squad, the whole family in Air Jordan 8 Aquas, you can do that. And unlike 2015 when the Aqua 8s actually ended up showing up in outlets, I think this release actually has a good shot at selling out. So hey, if you're watching this video after they sold out, maybe you want to grab a pair for resale, or maybe you're watching this video before they release and you want to grab a pair for resale, I've made sure to link them through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. As of right now, just under a week before they drop, they are still going for well over retail, so keep that in mind. Usually when a shoe is going to sell out, it tends to stay around that price point even up until release day. So if you want a pair of these, enter all those raffles because you never know if you're going to be able to grab a pair or not, especially with retros nowadays, OG retros, because sometimes they fly off shelves, you never know. But getting into the actual materials that make up the 2025 Aqua 8s, around the toe and covering a lot of the panels on the front half of the upper of the shoe, you've got this black nubuck material. It's pretty soft, it's very buttery, it doesn't feel incredibly premium, but it doesn't feel bad. Maybe it's because of the color or the way that the material is, but it doesn't do that thing where when you swipe it one way, it gets lighter or darker, which is not really an indicator of quality. It's just kind of fun. This shoe doesn't do that, but hey, that's okay. Moving up on the shoe to the eye stay, you get to one of the largest differences between this retro and any of the previous releases even of this shoe, and that's the light gray suede. This suede material is really hairy, which is great. I love that a lot. However, it's significantly lighter than any of the previous retros and even the OG. In fact, this light gray suede that you find all over the upper of the shoe is probably the most noticeable change on the entire sneaker. While sure, the OG didn't come in black, it came with a dark gray suede, it was nowhere near as light as this, and none of the previous retros have been this light. That being said, is it a deal breaker? In my opinion, not really, but maybe it is for you. Worst case scenario, just dye it darker. You can buy some Angel's dye and go to town, you're good to go. Weaving through these punched out eyelets in the light gray suede, you've got these flat black laces. It's actually the only set of laces that you get inside the box, no surprise there. And then underneath that, you've got this very soft fabric tongue. Now, one of the largest differences between the Air Jordan 8s and other retros is that this shoe comes with an internal booty construction, meaning that your foot doesn't go right up against the edges of the shoe like a regular pair of Air Jordan sneakers. Instead, there's actually this internal, basically sock that wraps around your foot when you slide your foot into it. It's very well padded, but it does feel like there's an extra layer between your foot and the outside of the shoe. Now, the reason it's there is for added support and a better overall fit. However, it does hamper breathability a little bit. And in my experience, it makes getting the shoe on significantly harder. If I try to slide my foot into the shoe, usually my heel will catch on this back part and push it all the way down unless I really hold onto this pull tab. And then there are times where my foot will kind of miss the slot entirely and kind of go outside the booty construction. Maybe I'm just an idiot, I don't know, but it's not the easiest or simplest shoe to get on. It's not complicated, but you do have to think about it a little bit when you throw these on feet. That said though, they do hug your foot very nicely and they do give you a bit more support, I guess, as much as like a soft fabric-y type material can. Speaking of support, another iconic detail on the Air Jordan 8 are these crisscross straps, which really allow you to lock your foot into the shoe. Now, when it comes to Air Jordan 8s, there are 2 ways to wear this shoe. You can wear it fully locked down, the basketball way, which looks good, or you can go for the much more loose, kind of like lightly strapped together look that has a much more casual vibe to it. Everyone rocks their 8s differently. I personally go with the more casual vibe because it's more comfortable on my feet, but you can do whatever you want. The shoe's designed to be worn both ways. These crisscross straps come with the same black nubuck that you find on the rest to the upper of the shoe. And then on, I guess, the medial strap or the outer strap, you've got that iconic 23 logo in that sort of very 90s font. It kind of is embossed out of the shoe, which I really like. On the Aquas, it just comes in black. On other colorways, they actually color it or paint it to give it a bit more pop, but on this shoe, it's pretty simple, and I like it. And then on the bottom of the straps, you've got this thin synthetic leather, which Jordan Brand actually calls out on the sneakers app. It's fine, it gets the job done. You don't ever really look at it, so it's not a big deal. Finally, moving towards the top of the tongue, you've got the iconic chenille Jumpman patch. This time around, it comes in a tri-color variant, which I guess it's more of like a 5-color. Sneakers app says tri-color, but I'm assuming it's just because of the red, the blue, and the purple. But in this case, it's got yellow, red, blue, purple, and black, so it doesn't matter. There you go. Material-wise, it's chenille, just like every other pair of Air Jordan 8s. However, unlike other colorways of the Air Jordan 8s, like the 23 being simple on this shoe, this patch is much more complex with a lot more colors. Continuing inside the shoe, which we've already loosely covered, you've got sort of double the padding, because you've got the booty construction and then just the regular padding on the ankle area of the shoe, which makes it a very well padded experience. Also, again, a very warm experience. Then rounding off the inside of the shoe, you've got the OG design on the insole. It comes with all these different colors, reds, oranges, blues, purples. It looks amazing. The foam is also soft underfoot too, which is great. I feel like the Air Jordan 8 is one of the, while more difficult shoes to get on, one of the more comfortable retros out there. Mainly because out of the classic, iconic retros, it's one of the newer ones, so it's got newer tech, like it's got forefoot and heel air units, and the upper is just well padded. But getting into sizing and fit, the Air Jordan 8 Aqua 2025 fits just like every other pair of Air Jordan 8s. For me, that's true to size, but for you, it might be something different. So I would suggest trying on a pair of Air Jordan 8s, whether it's a friend's pair or maybe a pair of Foot Locker if they have any pair sitting around, which I kind of doubt, but if they do, try a pair on, see if it fits you, because it's $215. Sure, you can return the shoe, but if you don't have to, even better. But generally, I would say go true to size. Even if you're wearing this shoe fully locked down, it's not gonna feel too tight. It is gonna feel tight, but not like incredibly tight. And if you wear it kind of loose like this, true to size is definitely the way to go. Now, you may have been thinking to yourself throughout this video, wow, those socks, they match the shoes perfectly. It looks like they were made for those shoes, and they were. These Air Jordan 8 inspired Apothecary socks are releasing officially this Friday, the day before these sneakers release on July 18th, and you can grab a pair on Apothecary's website, apothecary.com. Now, what's cool about the design of these socks is that they're actually inspired by two different Air Jordan 8s. The pattern used on the sock is actually inspired by the Playoff 8s, and the colorway used on the sock is inspired by the Aqua 8s. So you get sort of an ode to Air Jordan 8s in general. And even if you don't want to go for a perfect match and rock them with a pair of Aqua 8s, you can rock them with really anything, and they're just a dope pair of socks. I wear these with my Apothecary 3D printed mules all the time. I wear these with my Asics a lot, actually. So there you go. You can rock them with anything. We're actually also dropping some other sneaker-inspired colorways on the same day, so stay tuned for those. Stay on the lookout. Again, July 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on apothecary.com. If you're trying to rock a pair of socks that match your Aqua 8s perfectly, this is a pair to grab. Continuing back in the sneaker, you've got some perforated nubuck, which kind of does nothing. This shoe is incredibly hot on foot. That's the third time I've said that, but seriously, that's because it's hot. Yes, the upper of the shoe is very supportive. Yes, it keeps you locked down, but man, is it warm. Continuing farther back in the shoe, you get to more of this light gray suede material, which again is lighter than any of the previous releases. It is sculpted like every other pair of Air Jordan 8s, and honestly, looking at it, the suede seems like the nicest quality material on the entire shoe, at least visually and to touch. I don't know if it's actually the most expensive or actually the nicest quality part, but either way, it feels like it is. Of course, rounding off the outside of the shoe, you've got these external TPU heel counters on either side of the sneaker. They're different shapes depending on whether you're looking at the lateral side or the medial side. They're painted with that same sort of abstract aqua print. Now, as I mentioned with the socks, the design of the Playoff 8s is actually different than the design used on the Aqua 8s, which is cool. I really like that they change up that detail depending on the colorway. Then moving down on the sneaker to the midsole, you get to another change between this retro and the 2015 retro, and that's that the midsole is not as sparkly as the 2015 retro. Now, the OG Aqua 8s did come with a sparkly midsole. That's not a detail that was added on the 2015 retro. However, on the 2015 pair, it was very obvious, and it looked like they kind of dropped it into the paint on top of the midsole. On this shoe, it's much more of like an iridescent candy coat. There's still sparkles there, but they're not as obvious, and they seem to be more of like a teal color than like a bright silver. And to be honest with you, I much prefer this look. It's just cleaner, it's simpler. I didn't have a problem with the 2015 pair, but if I was to look at the shoes side by side, I'd go this way. Of course, in between the purple hits on the midsole, you've got some teal accents in the middle on both the lateral and medial side of the shoe. And then getting to the bottom of the sneaker, you get to one of the wildest hits on the entire shoe, and that's the outsole. So the front half and the back half of the outsole are covered in black rubber. You've obviously got this teal hit that kind of runs through the center of the toe, and of course the Jumpman there in red. But then in the center of the midfoot, you've got this like very, very 90s abstract pattern that comes with reds and yellows and blacks and teals and purples, and it's just such a cool detail. It's a design that's much more similar to like the insole than any other part of the shoe. While yes, you do have yellows and reds on the tongue, that's really the only place on the outside of the shoe that you have those details. So see them again called back on the outsole or used again on the outsole is very, very cool. But hey, oddly enough, my favorite part of the entire shoe, even though you barely ever get to see it. In my opinion, while the Aqua 8s do take some liberties in terms of color changes and other minor changes throughout the sneaker compared to like the OG or previous retros, I still think that this is an excellent retro of the Aqua 8s. We haven't had this shoe in 10 years. It's been 10 years since 2015. That's crazy to say. But it's one of those shoes that maybe you don't need to buy a pair every couple of years like Chicago's or Black Cement 3s or something like that. But it's one of those shoes that when it does come out, it is kind of special. It's an OG pair of 8s. It's a really clean colorway. And it's a design that only works every so often. Like it only really works when the 90s are popping or the 2000s are popping. Or if you're a retro head, you just wear retros no matter what. But I think if you love the Air Jordan 8 or you just want a pair of Aqua 8s because you've never owned a pair before, now's the time to grab it. Grab the 2025 release. It's not going to be super easy to grab, I don't think, but I don't think the resale price is going to be crazy. Then again, I didn't think the reimagined 5s would go crazy the way that they did. But hey, you just really never know anymore. So if you want a pair of these, try and grab them for retail. That's the only advice I got. But hey, at this point, I would love to know your thoughts on the upcoming Aqua 8s. Are you grabbing a pair? Do you not care? Let me know all those thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.